I think a robe is a quintessential Christmas gift. If you've not given one before for a holiday, then I bet you that you have received one. And today in this video, we're gonna do another edition of the Can I Make That series using inspiration from the Skims robe collection. And we're gonna make a Skims look-alike with the Compose robe from Love Notions. I'm going to show you how I got my inspiration and how I sewed it up and how easy it can be to make a similar look-alike pattern that either for you or for someone that you love. I'm going to be pairing this set with my Luna cami, and I'm also going to be creating a pair of sleep pants using the Luna Loungewear pants. And I am hoping that I can create a version of this super beautiful, completely out of stock velour sleep set and make my dreams come true with my sewing. So let's take a closer look at the velour fleece wrap sleep set from Skims. This is available at Nordstrom, but only in size 2X, and it's $148. I'm noticing a really pretty robe with a tie. It's got a very simple band, a little bit of a drop shoulder, but I don't really love drop shoulders on me. I'm also noticing we've got these like nice drapey long pajama bottoms, which are really beautiful. And this is all in this gorgeous velour fabric. And I know if it is what I'm thinking it is going to be beautiful to the touch, soft, luxurious, and feel amazing. And to be honest, I totally think I can make this myself. I'm also going to start by adding in the undergarments for this little outfit. I'm going to start with the Luna Loungewear cami. I'm going to pair those with the PJ bottoms that go with the Luna Loungewear pattern collection. And I'm going to be incorporating the shelf bra into it. So this will be the perfect thing to wear at night with just a little bit of support still, but feeling great. I'm making this out of a black modal fabric for the cami. And initially I was going to try to put the PJ pants into the velour fabric that I have, but I didn't have enough of it. So I'm also going to be using a different color of modal for my PJ bottoms. This is it's a great recovery, great quality fabric. Let's look at the velour that I have. It's from Nature's Fabrics. This is, I believe, the tomato cotton velour fabric, which is sold out, but they have a ton of other colorways. This is a cotton velour. It's extra plush, super soft. It is 80% cotton and 20% poly. It's about 58 to 60 inches wide, and it weighs approximately 220 GCM. It has a poly in the backing, and it stretches 50% in the width and 0% in length. So this is going to make a perfect robe, but you could also make wipes, baby towels, diapers, sleepwear, yoga pants, all the things that you want. And it's also dyeable. Or this fabric has been dyed, but they have like a base one that hasn't been dyed yet that you could do yourself. So that'd be kind of fun to do as well. So we're going to use this fabric to do a sew along for the Compose robe. I already made the Luna top and bottoms, and let's just start by going ahead and cutting out our pattern pieces for the Compose robe. There really are not that many pattern pieces, but it does take quite a bit of fabric. So this robe took every single bit of 3 yards. Like I said, I was hoping to squeeze some PJ bottoms out of this cut of velour, but that did not happen. So I am just going to make do with a robe from it. So we're going to cut everything out, and then we're going to pin and sew our center back seam. There is a center back seam, and I think this is a great thing because it gives an opportunity for lots of great shaping in the back. It's not going to just be one blank solid piece. There'll be some shaping inside of there, which is, a robe will not need to be so fitted, but it is nice for it to have a beautiful shape. So I'm going to pin the right sides together, the center back pieces, and I'm going to first sew these with a straight stitch because when you're sewing velour fabric, it's pretty thick. You kind of have to adjust your sewing machine. I'm going to use a longer stitch length when I sew these together. And then I'm going to serge it because I do want to have the seams finished inside and out because I want this to be something that I can wear and pull out. And I just tend to gravitate towards those things that are finished as nicely on the inside as they are on the outside. You'll also notice that the back of this fabric is super plush and soft. Sometimes I think of velour as being almost like a stretch velvet or like a crushed velvet. But this velour, the backing of this fabric is so soft. It feels great. And I know that it's gonna wash really well too, which is also important to me. So I am going to be using Wonder Clips for most of this project. I prefer Wonder Clips over pins, especially for big plush fabric like this. There's only a few circumstances where I'm going to want to get a pin out, and that's going to be for putting the pockets on, because you just can't get to things as well with a clip. But notice that I am using the original Wonder Clips. There are knockoff ones that you can buy on like Amazon and stuff that do the job totally, you know, just fine. But the Wonder Clips tend to be a lot more sturdy, and they won't break as easily. You'll also notice that I've got some markings on here. I have a marking there for tie, like a belt loop for the tie. And I ended up not using that loop because I just had went through and sewed this, and I forgot to come back in and add it in the loop. So I'm just gonna not have one on the back, but I am gonna be using the ones on the sides. So you can see here I have used a kind of a longer stitch length here to sew that center back seam, and then I went over it with my serger. You'll also notice that I'm trying really hard to use coordinating thread. I think that just sets the piece, it just elevates the piece a little bit. So I'm also going to be pinning and sewing those straps. When I do a sewing project, I tend to do all of like the beginning pinning pieces together. And so I actually had pinned this beforehand, but I just showed you the sewing of the center back seam just because that's a little bit more helpful to see. But I had, at the beginning of this process, I went through and pinned everything that I could because I don't like to be going back and forth from things constantly. So here is the band, the front band that goes around the neckline. You'll notice that there are some markings there that I've got. Those are super important when you are attaching the band to the robe at the neckline and the center front and stuff. So you need to make sure that those are transferred carefully. I did just go ahead and like just cut into my fabric a little bit. I don't know that that's, you know, the typical way to do things, but I probably should cut like little notches outward from the fabric. But I just sometimes when I just get things going and done, and I'm fine having a little bit of a cut in there as long as I can serge over it and nobody can see it. I just have to be very careful that it's within the seam allowance. So I'm also going to be pinning and sewing that tie. And when you are sewing this together, just make a note about how long this tie is, because when it comes time to turn it, you might struggle. So just pay attention to that. Now, I also am going to start working on those pockets. So we're going to flip the outer edge down, and we're going to just sew 1 inch on each of the folded over edges of the pocket. Just right there, we're gonna sew that down, and then we'll be able to flip it. I could finish the edge of this pocket, but this fabric is so nice and feels so good, I'm not gonna really care about that when I'm putting my hands in the pockets. So I'm gonna clip those corners so that when I turn out those corners, they're a really nice, crisp corner. I think having kind of like wonky pockets is sometimes a dead giveaway for having a very homemade project, which there's nothing wrong with something being homemade, but I really want to try my best to replicate the quality of the Skims garment, that Skims robe, and this is just one little place that I can do that. So I'm clipping the corners, and then I am going to sew down that top piece about 1 inch down from that folded edge. And you'll notice I have like a little ruler there. That is a ruler that you can iron on. I use that thing constantly. I love how that when you press on it, it doesn't get hot. And if you haven't picked up one of those, I highly, highly recommend it. Now, I am turning out the other pocket right now. I like to grasp onto that inner corner first and then flip it over and then make sure everything is aligned inside nice and flat and straight. And then I'm going to take it to the machine and using a little bit of a longer stitch length and making sure that my presser foot isn't pushing down too hard because velour can be challenging to sew. I'm going to sew that top edge down. That's the part where you're going to stick your hand in at the top. And then I'm going to fold down to 3/8 of an inch through the rest of the pocket around the sides and the bottom. I'm going to be continually coming back to my ruler to make sure that I'm getting that 3/8 of an inch. And like I said, I use that ruler constantly. I use it at the sewing machine all over the place. So I have clipped these, and you'll notice that it's going to be hard for me to attach the pocket when it's clipped like that, but let me show you my approach. So I'm going to get out my front piece, and I realized that I forgot to mark the pocket pieces, so I'm just going to grab a pen and just mark those on my fabric real quick. And then I'm going to take that pocket and lay it over, matching everything up as much as I can. And then I am going to grab some pins now. So like the clips obviously are not going to work for me as I'm sewing on the pocket and placing everything. So I'm going to get my pins out, and I'm just going to grab them at the 4 corners of the pocket. And then after I've got those 4 corners pinned down, I'm just going to leave the window clips there in place as I take it to the machine to sew. And it is really important. I mean, we've got 6 layers of fabric that's going to be sewn through here. It's important to go slow, make sure your tension is correct, make sure everything is lined up correctly. Now I'm going over to our belt loops. I've sewn those along the raw edge there, the long edge, and I'm going to be using this easy turn. I think this is like from, what is it, like Sue O'Very or something like that. I think it might be like Sookie Sews now. I think she had a rebrand. But I'm just going to use that hook to insert the belt loop through it. And then because this is velour fabric, it's going to be a little bit harder to turn just because it's really thick. But this thing makes everything really easy. And in fact, I use this loop turner for the big giant tie as well. And this, fabric is really has great recovery and stretch and stuff. So it worked just fine, even when I was using the big giant belt, like the big tie for the rope as well. So there's my belt loops. I'm going to divide those into 3. And again, when it comes to sewing, I prefer to be a little bit more on the, done is better than perfect side of things. So this is something that's not going to matter too much to me. So I'm just going to divide it up into 3. It's not going to be perfect, but it is going to be quick and easy. So here are my 3 belt loops. I'm going to actually use 2 on the side seams, and then one of them I'm going to attach at the top because I like to have a nice sturdy hook for hanging up my robe. I don't like having the back of the robe get like a big indentation when it's on the hooks. So I'm using the markings there to put these into the side seam. And before I sew the side seam though, I have to sew the shoulder seam as well as insert the sleeves. So I'm going to pin the shoulder seams, the front of the robe to the back that has been sewn together in the center, and then I'm going to sew the sleeves, which I incidentally forgot to show you. So I've sewn the sleeves, and if you need help sewing a sleeve, you should take a look at Noreen's sleeve sewing video. It's perfection. So let's take a look now at what we've got. We're now ready to sew those side seams after we've sewn the sleeves. We're gonna pin these together, those side seams. We've gotten already the belt loops inserted in between those layers. And again, that's gonna make a really thick layer. This pattern can be used with both knit and woven fabric. So if you're looking to make more of a summer weight robe, awesome. You're not going to have any trouble here at all. But when you're talking about using fleece or waffle knit or something that is really thick, like you could even do like a sweatshirt fleece or a really thick French terry. There's so many fabrics that you could sew this robe in. You're going to really need to do some adjusting on your sewing machine to make sure that that gets under your machine correctly. So now we're gonna be looking at the hemline, and please note that right now I am only going to be folding up the hem 1 inch. I'm gonna pull out my handy ruler. I am going to fold up the entire hem along the bottom of my robe, and I'm also going to fold up the hem on my sleeves, but I am not yet going to sew it. And that's because I'm lazy. No, but for real, I like to have a cover stitch hem. I like the way that looks, but I only have 3 rolls of the correct colored thread, and I don't want to have to like unload my serger and then put it in my cover stitch and then come back again. So I'm actually just going to fold this up so that I can come back to cover stitching everything at the very end. So I don't have to come back to my serger, because I'm gonna need to do a couple more things with my serger before I'm ready to do the cover stitching and then the hemming of everything. So folding it up here is not gonna be a problem at all, because our next step is going to be to prepare the neckband, that big long band that goes around the entire front of the robe. So I have folded, or I have right sides together at the short ends, folded those, and now I'm going to fold everything together right sides again, but I'm going to sew this bottom edge of the band on both ends. I'm going to fold those together and then sew 1 inch up on that band, and this is going to be where this is going to meet at the hemline. So that was the hemline. That center part is going to be the center back of the pattern of the robe, and then this will be that other side that will meet at the hem. So pin that. I'm going to sew that right there at the edge 1 inch up, and then we're going to be able to turn that out. So now it's time to turn and fold the ends of this band. I just have to say, this fabric was such a pleasure to work with. It was a really, really enjoyable sew. It was very satisfying, and thankfully my sewing machine behaved pretty nicely with it. I just decreased the tension a little bit on the presser foot, and I think I used about a 4 or so stitch length, and it worked just fine. I don't even think I changed my needle on this, but if you struggle, I would suggest changing your needle, playing around with your tension. I would even suggest rethreading completely to get everything kind of level set. Now it's time to align and pin and sew that neckband. Now you can see that I attached that other belt loop, the remaining 3rd belt loop. I put that on the back, the center back, and I need to have that in place before I sew on this band. So I'm going to align the center of my band. I'm going to align that right sides together with the center back of my pattern. So I'm just going to match up those lines right there. Now, if you take a look at that, what is that, like 8, maybe, what is it? Maybe 10 layers of fabric there. It's gonna take my sewing machine and especially my serger some time to get through there. So I am gonna actually pin that just to make sure all of those pieces stay together in the right spot and they don't slide. And right now I'm gonna be pinning or clipping the first marking on that neckband up to the shoulder seam of my already sewn front and back of the robe. So it's really important when you're putting the band on that you have everything lined up correctly. That means that you're going to want to make sure that you stretch just a little bit to get everything to meet carefully through those points. So you might have to stretch the band just a little bit. And there's the other point, that mark that I'm going to be matching up. And I'm going to be just a little bit stretching the band to meet the neckline opening through here. But please note that you are not going to want to stretch almost at all from the end of that point down to the hemline. It should be like a 1-to-1 match for the rest of the neckband. So what I like to do is just barely stretch out the neckband and then meet up with the main neckline. And I try almost to like not touch the neckline itself at all, because even just touching it sometimes can make it get stretched out. So really, depending on what fabric you're working with, if you've got like a really loose weave of something, you're gonna want to be really careful to not stretch out your main neckline, because you're gonna get things that are like really wavy and kind of wonky if you do that. So, and now I'm just gonna continue clipping down through the rest of that neckband all the way down to the hemline. This should be pretty easy, and like I said before, it's going to be kind of like a 1-to-1 matchup. And I've folded up the hemline, so that's ready to go, but I haven't actually hemmed it yet. So I'm just going to carefully note that as when I sew over that, just to make sure that it's ready to be cover stitched later. Everything's folded over and flat, and nothing gets like caught up into the neckband being sewn on. And as you can see, again, nothing is being stretched here as I'm sewing from the bottom of the robe up to that first mark. Attaching the neckband to the robe really ties everything together so beautifully. I feel so satisfied with this whole process. But it does result, once I go over it with my serger, it does result in some tails from the sergers. And there's a lot of different ways to finish these off, but I like this process the best. I use I think it's called a latch hook. I think it's like a crochet tool, but it's like the tiniest one that you can possibly find. I use it constantly. And I'm just going to work that tiny little looped metal piece through the seam allowance that the serger has created. All of that like overlocked thread there, I'm going to work it through, and then I'm going to push it out, and I'm going to use that little like loop hook piece, and I'm going to work the thread tail from the serger through it, and then it's going to catch and it's going to pull it through, and I'm just going to stick it through there. And I think you could tie it, but usually I just pull it through, make sure everything's nice and snug and it's pulled through far enough, and then I just cut that off, and I've never had any problems with it. But of course you could sew over that again if you wanted to. So now I will be ready to use my cover stitch and go over the hems. So I've got my serger thread is ready to go into the cover stitch, which is wonderful. I'm going to fold up the hemline of both the sleeves and the exterior, the bottom of the robe. Like I said before, the bottom of the robe is going up 1 inch, as well as the hem of the sleeve. And I'm just going to pin that and get that over to the machine, and then I will be basically done. I will have to do the tie, but I'm going to do the same process as I would for the belt loops with that. Okay, so now we have completed the sewing for the Compose robe, but let's take a closer look at the Luna Loungewear cami with the built-in bra, as well as the Luna Loungewear PJ pants. So this whole look is absolutely up my alley. I love sets like this. First of all, the PJ pants, I just added on, I think I added on like maybe 11 inches of length, just straight down, went down to the, on the PJ pants, I just added, because they were originally a capri length. So I added some length there and put it in like a little tie at the top, which is actually not really functional. It's just for show, but I put in the buttonholes and then added in a little piece of elastic. And then for the Luna cami, it has like that built-in bra piece, which I'm so happy with. I love being able to have a built-in bra that's really comfortable, but just gives a tiny bit of support as I sleep. So that's really nice. And as far as some of the finishing details for the cami, I used a little bit of a skinnier elastic than is called for the strap. So the entire strap is that elastic. And then I also used this piece of lace trim that I found in our notions box. And I just attached that at the top for this cami. It was a pretty straightforward way to attach it. Just sewed it kind of like right sides together, folded it up, serged the edge of it, so it's nice and soft on the inside, but it looks really pretty on the outside too. One of my tips is to make sure that one of your serger threads has that the nylon thread so that it's really, really soft. So that's the little tie of my PJ pants, and I'm so happy with them. And speaking of happy, I am ecstatic with my velour robe. I am obsessed with this thing. It is so soft. I do not want to take it off. I love how every detail came out, and I think that all things considered, it's a really good replica of some of the main things that were happening with the Skims velour robe. It is obviously the same material, but it has like those sleek design lines that I really liked with the Skims robe, and it would be very easy to make this robe into that shorter version that was shown in the listing picture. And if I had had enough fabric, I would have definitely made those PJ pants, but honestly, I think I'm really happy with having a little bit more of a casual version of the sleep pants. So this is exactly what I wanted to get out of this process. So I'm not even sure if I had gotten the sleep set from Skims, if I would be as happy with it as I am with what I've got here. So you can also see that on this version of the robe, I shortened the sleeves by I think around 5 or 6 inches. I have very short arms and robes are always so long on me. So I'm thrilled to be able to have a robe that just fits me perfectly. This is a size medium, so it is supposed to have a little bit of a slightly oversized fit because typically I wear a large, so I really like the sizing for this one, and I'm just so happy with how this turned out. Can I make it? Yes!